So
I'll let you guys talk about your Apple TV experience, but let me just talk about mine first because mine will be short. So obviously I didn't watch any games live. I wasn't using the app on Saturday when all the games are going on. I chose just to like hang out, family and friends and stuff that night, thinking, okay, I'll watch the wrap-up show. So my experience with the app this weekend was through the wrap-up show. And maybe this is on me, but I don't know if anyone else felt the same way. I assumed the wrap-up show was going to be like a match of the day. You know, that's what I expected. And that's why I guess that I feel like the network needs is that match of the day. Because someone like myself who couldn't watch any of the games, and here's the thing, it kind of was that, but it's not that at the same time. It's, if I could give feedback for the wrap-up show.
Well, okay, first of all, go remedial here. Okay, you're saying like match of the day. Tell people how match of the day handles it.
Match of the day shows the highlights from every match from the match day. Select highlights, and usually there's one game they show a little bit more of than the others, like a mini game, and then all the highlights. And there's no real voiceovers. It's just the announcers from that game and stuff like that. And it's a great thing that the Premier League does. This is 4 studio analysts doing the highlights, but here's my issue. They kept spoiling what was going to happen, talking about, they're getting ahead of the footage, so they're talking about what's going to happen as if I've watched the game. And here, maybe this is on me. Maybe this show isn't what I wanted it to be, and so this is an unfair criticism, but this is still how I felt as someone using the device for the first time, is that they were constantly talking about this game and even other games at times during the highlights. I'm trying to watch the highlights to see what happened in the games, and they're already spoiling the result as they're talking about the highlights.
You know, I just don't think that thing exists in American sports. But
they have the ability to do it. They own all the rights. Why not do it?
You're right. What I'm saying is I don't think I don't think it's ever been a thing. So maybe that's just not in the minds of the people putting that product out. But you're right. Maybe it should be that. Maybe it should be, hey, look, I couldn't watch any games today. Oh, I got time to watch the wrap-up show. Or I can go back and watch on demand. I can watch the wrap-up show. Let me pull that up. And then,
if you want to have 4 studio analysts talking about all the weekend's games, cool. Do that at the end. Do the highlights.
Cut back from the highlights. Don't have them talking over the highlights.
And then at the end, they didn't even do the highlights from a couple of games. Now, I did hear that maybe there was a glitch where they didn't put some of the footage out or something like that. But I think I read that. I'm not positive, but there were a couple of games that weren't even in the wrap-up show.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was just a mistake on the first day or what.
Well,
but
I'm thinking about,
it's kind of like, it's interesting. They're really trying to force the analyst part of like summing up the weekend, which it's a wrap-up show, sum up the weekend. But for someone that, just fair warning, for someone, if you're trying to watch a wrap-up show to see all the weekend and what happened, it may not be the best vessel for you. Go and watch the individual highlights of every game, I guess, one by one.
Well, but that's annoying, right? To have to kind of go do
that's
that.
What we did. That's what you did before on the MLS site, right? No different than that.
Yeah, sure. No, but
they did put out a review show.
But you have the ability to you own the footage. You have the rights. You can make this anything you want it to be.
Actually, the review show is what Jared was talking about, right? Isn't it? There wasn't MLS for a long time. Though on YouTube, there would be this review show with a British guy, and he would be like, and let's go to Nashville, where the Nashville is taking on NYCFC. And then they would just go to the announcers, and it would be highlights from that game without that British guy, and then he would come back and say, okay, down to Miami. Like, that's all it was.
This, like I said, it could be completely unfair that I'm trying to force this to be something it wasn't. That was just my own expectation,
You're the
something
consumer.
I'm bringing to the table.
You're the consumer. You tell them what to do. You tell them they've got it wrong,
because
Jared.
from all feedback I've been seeing, the day of product was fantastic. The quality, the interface. I know there's a couple things with the scoring, showing, and stuff like that you can toggle on and off. I do know, like, what is it? I think it was the 360 show. I heard pretty positive things about. What was your guys' experience with it this weekend?
So, okay, I'll start with the 360 show because I did jump into that. Everybody's getting their feet wet. It's the first one. I'm not going to be too harsh with like sort of how they interacted.
Talking over each other a good amount.
Liam McHugh is a pro, right? Yes. And he knows how to set things up. There's no doubt about that. I like Bradley Wright-Phillips individually. I like Sasha Kleshtin individually. I've never been sold on Kaylin Kyle. I'm not sure. Maybe she said some pertinent analysis things that I did think were good, but there's no energy. Like there's no oomph to the show. There's no
compare that to CBS's Champions League like panel, like with Micah, Thierry,
and maybe you don't need quite that level of insanity sometimes, but Bradley Wright-Phillips is a smart guy,
But there's
but
an identity.
he's a reserved guy. Sasha Kleshtin is a pretty reserved guy. Kalen Kyle was going a little bit bigger, but it's only one person, and I just think, and it's the only time that show picked up. First of all, they did that thing where somebody called it Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they had them all standing there looking up at the big screens with their backs to the cameras, and it's like, I don't know who has the best rear end, but let's take a look and figure it out. Like, what are we doing here?
I'm betting Sasha.
Probably. Then they put them in chairs, right? And they're all sitting around in front of the big screens now. And then we get Taylor showing up. And Taylor changed the whole complexion of the show because he's a maniac.
Well, because the Taylor show, in some respect.
It became the Taylor show.
And I think there's elements that are needed of that type of personality. And I think that's what you're talking about when someone has to have that personality in the lineup. I feel like with the wrap-up show, four people may be too many.
You're going with two people who have, as far as I'm aware, has Bradley Wright-Phillips done television? Somebody in the chat will know. I don't know if he's done it in New York Red Bull
maybe,
stuff.
I'm not sure, but I thought he looked natural.
Sure.
I thought he was good.
No, but there's a difference between being comfortable and natural. And I think Sasha Kleshtin, again, a smart guy, knows the game, can talk about the game.
Agreed.
But there's not that extra level of comfort to kind of like bust out of your shell and be. And again, they don't have to be NBA on TNT. They don't have to be the Champions League show on CBS. But that was like, okay.
But what do those things have in common?
The games are happening.
Think about the things that are successful. There's a formula to it. The Charles Barkley, the Shaq. But hold on, let me finish because I want to get to a point here. The Taylor Twellmans, and the people are going to react to this, but the Alexi Lawless. And I know there's people that are very visceral in how they feel about Alexi Lawless, but the fact is he makes you feel something. That's what the show needs to have. It has to have someone that evokes something from you.
But I come back to, after talking all about that, and yes, exactly what you said, except this is a show happening during the games where it's a whip around show. It's not supposed to be sort of having fun. Like, they're not going to have a Gucci Onyewu and who was the other one on the Champions League coverage? They did the arm wrestling match. Why am I blanking on his name? Micah Richards.
Oh, Mike Richards.
It's not going to be Gooch and Micah Richards having a arm wrestling contest.
Well, I'm kind of talking both about the wrap-up show as well. The wrap-up show, I think, is where you get more of that personality side.
Those are two different products. Yeah. So I do think the wrap-up show can be looser because it's already happened. We're not responding to what's happening in the moment. And I do get that Sasha and BWP in particular want to add value as analysts, former players, as analysts to that. I get it. I just think the presentation was kind of weird. And look, there's also this fundamental issue that you have with a whip-around show for soccer, and Golasso actually has this problem too, I think. Even though it's a decent show, you can't really capture the moment as it happens. You have to respond after the fact, right? With an NFL whip-around show, the Chiefs are inside the 10. Let's go to Kansas City.
It's just
where
not
they're
that
trying
sport.
to. You don't have that. You have to wait until the thing happens, and you go, okay, let's go to Nashville where they've just scored a goal, and you're like, well, okay, well now I already know they scored. You've already told me.
It does allow you those that there's setups for free kicks, there's setups for corner kicks. Like there is the time to transition to those things, and you just feature
sometimes
one game while all the other stuff is going on until there's something to show, which is the RedZone does as well.
It's a really hard directing job because the director has to say, okay, let's put that game and that game there. And because the crew can't watch 12 games happening at one time. You can't do it. It's impossible. You'll never be able to divine exactly what's going on in any one place. So your director has to pick a couple games for the crew to watch. But also other people are keeping an eye on other games so that when something happens somewhere, you can toss to that, and then your crew has to respond to that highlight in the moment as they're seeing it for the very first time. So I think
they've got the elements for the right show. Go ahead, Nick.
I almost feel like, and I don't know if you're familiar with this program over in England, but they have that panel where they're all wearing headsets and they're watching that specific game at the desk. And like,
I know what you're talking about.
Like I almost feel like they need to do that.
That'd be interesting.
With the ability to show the video.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. You know what he's talking about, Jared? Like the BBC. I don't know if it's the BBC.
I think it's Sky.
Okay, Sky. It's because
I'm American.
They don't
Jeff
have...
Snelling is the host.
They don't have all the rights. So they can't show all the video. But what they'll have is they'll have an analyst, former player, with headphones on, watching it, sitting at a desk, cameras there, looking at a monitor. And then they'll like, there was a goal in Brentford. And then they'll kind of like look up and start talking, and they'll describe what's happening with this goal at Brentford. You can, if you could do that with video.
See, we don't. Yeah, there's no need to do that with MLS because you own all the rights to everything.
What
No,
I'm
but
saying
what
is you
I'm-
could
what
add
he's saying
that
is-
with the
what
video.
he's saying is assign somebody to keep an eye on that game rather than sort of all 4 people watching all the games or only being given what the director is picking.
They're always
But
reacting
then again,
live
you
instead
want
of
the-
being prepared somewhat. Yeah.
You want the crosstalk, though, right? You want BWP to say something and Sasha and Kaylin to respond to it. You don't want it to be like only.
So, for example, it'd be like, all right, let's start the work intensive. Who's got an update on the Chicago Fire match? And then she's like,
basically, and she would say, "Oh, the Fire are a terrible soccer team, and they should be folded. Let's go back to you."
Back to Philly.
Kinda what
One thing I will say is when we saw that they were doing this type of show, this whip around show, I think we all, and maybe it was on us as well, again, that we took this to be like NFL RedZone.
How
If
could
you
you
watch
not?
NFL RedZone, you know from 1 p.m. until 8 p.m., you're watching commercial-free football.
it's
Okay?
the original.
Now, I was very surprised,
By the
and I
commercials,
understand
yeah.
why they went to commercials, but I also am wondering, why do you have commercials on this program? It's a paid
Well,
serve, like
But the red zone approach is a
Fair.
very different approach, right? Because the red zone approach is one guy who's guiding you from game to game
Right.
as those things. Now, again, there's some drama build up in an NFL game that you don't get in a soccer match, but you could is the better approach. And I'm not trying to run BWP and Sasha and everybody else out of a job, but is the better approach to have Liam McHugh standing in front of monitors and in front of a camera and saying, "Okay, let's go to Nashville," and then you cut to those announcers. You're paying all this
those
money.
announcers. Yep.
Those
Honestly-
announcers, and they call that game, and then and you come back and you go, "Okay, well that was a great goal by Henny Mukhtar. Okay, let's go out to Los Angeles where they've just kicked off," and then you get the first 3 minutes, whatever, of LA Galaxy against whoever, right?
I will tell you that as somebody who watches Red Zone pretty religiously, you never see the guy on camera. Almost never. The only
Okay,
time
right.
you ever see
Okay.
him on camera is if all the games are in a
I don't think it's
timeout.
necessary.
So you might not even need to put Liam on a camera to do
Sure.
what he.
But you're paying
needs
them a
to
lot
do.
of money to be on
No,
camera.
I understand that. I understand that.
Right.
So I will also add.
Sasha bought some suits. Sasha
No,
bought some
that's true.
suits, man.
And
I
I
will
thought
also.
Sasha and Bradley Wright-Phillips are good pieces of what they need to do. That show may not be the best way to showcase them. Maybe
Yeah.
they're better on the wrap-up show because I didn't think Nigel Rio Coker was that good on it. I think there's some.
See, that's the
Me
thing. Like, should we
personally-
get into like reviews of individual
It's a personal.
people?
It's a personal. It's just
Yeah.
a personal take on mine.
I will say, if this was Sasha's and Bradley's first time on TV doing any type of analyst work, I'm giving them a pass because we all know this is not easy. Like
Well,
getting
Sasha
in-
did the online stuff at the World Cup for ESPN.
Yeah,
It
he
was
did.
Strictly
He did a little bit.
online.
He did a little
Yeah.
bit. He did some World Cup stuff.
Him
That's why-
and Jimmy
Okay,
and
Fox, yeah.
World Cup.
fine. Okay,
Did I say ESPN?
But still,
Oh, Fox. Sorry.
first show, let's give him a pass. It will get better, and I enjoyed all of it this weekend. Like I was excited. I was telling my kids, like, look, we haven't had this for 28 years. We finally have.
No, and the visuals. I was thinking about this watching games, flipping back and forth. Like to have this high standard of video quality across the board, and everything sounded good. And even, I mean, obviously it's opening weekend. The attendance numbers are all good because the league teams can sell against this game forever and ever and ever. But the atmospheres popped in places where they don't normally pop in ways that I was surprised by, right? Because I would have been watching FC Dallas in Minnesota on local Dallas television. And as much as I respect those guys, and Mark Fellowill and Steve Davis were their television guys, I love both those guys. It felt bigger, way bigger than it would have on a local RSN. And I think that is potentially big, although, again, it's the matter of getting people in the door to even see that, right? This weekend was free, but you had to have your Apple
And
TV
I don't want to be the
account.
teardown. I don't want to be the teardown guys here. Like there's something cool happening here. There's something very cool happening here. And I think if it's going to happen, I think we just want it to happen at its highest level and get the best possible product that we could. It looks like Jason's freezing out right now, but Nick and I keep talking about it. But I think there's nothing wrong with giving them some constructive feedback because it is a personal experience for the MLS fan. The people that have been around for 20 years. Oh, there he is. He's back now.
Yeah, my apologies, guys. I don't know what's going on with my system here. We're going to fix that next time.
No, we were just talking about the fact like it's
angry
okay to
letters.
both be excited for what this can mean, but also be realistic in the feedback in terms of, I think, and I actually believe that Apple has the personnel in place that cares enough that is going to listen to the feedback. I think they will take some of this feedback. I think you've already heard about the fact that they have people that are trying to aggregate this feedback and figure out how they can do this better.
Yeah.
I think they'll be committed to that. And if we see a few changes down the road, I don't see any reason why this can't be the industry standard for sports in America and how it's presented.
Right.